SGC here, and we are back once again with a movie review, The Monument Men. So it is a 2014 American-German war film directed by George Clooney, written and produced by him, and it stars him, and Matt Damon, Bill Murray, John Goodman, Jean Desjardins, Bob Balaban, Hugh Bonneville, and Kate Blanchett, based on the non-fiction book, The Monument Men, Allied Heroes, Nasty Feats, and the Greatest Treasure Hunt in History by Robert M. Edsel. The film's plot pretty much follows a allied group, the Monument Fine Arts and Archives program. They're tasked with finding and saving pieces of art and other culturally important items before they get destroyed by Hitler during World War II. So what did I like about this film? The fact that it exists. I really enjoy this historical context as to things happened after the Normandy attacks, and people were still being put in after the crazy attacks that everyone remembers. Not attacks, but battles. People were still going in, and you got these guys who are just old, and they're just trying to save art. There's an architect here and there, and there's like art. They're all artsy guys, and they're just here to save art and to find art. At first, I felt that it was like unconventional in terms of just pure common sense, because I mean, that's the biggest thing that goes against this movie, is that these guys are not trained at all, beside basic training, and they're old, and how you can't really picture them going ahead and finding art and stopping people from destroying it. So the plot, or the actual history in terms of what they're doing overseas, is that they're actually just finding art that's been hidden. So I sort of wish that plot point came a lot earlier than later on, when you realize that the Nazis are hiding art rather than these Monument Men are going and fighting Nazis. Because I feel that maybe some people might feel that this is the plot, but it isn't. It's rather the entire scope of things is that they're finding hidden art. And like I said, I wish that point in that plot is that it surfaced earlier in the film, that it establishes is what we're doing here. Because that's the biggest thing about this film, is that the narrative felt disjointed. Because I mean, they were split up and you didn't know what's really happening, because their objective was clear, but it was so vague and broad that you didn't really know what they were doing. And I think some reviewers are pointing that out, and I agree. Like, the narrative is the weakest part about this film. It could have been more tightened up in terms of just how it was written, but I don't know how accurate it is, so it might be actually that's what happened in those times. That's how they handled this thing. So, you know, it works against itself, and at the same time you sort of like, oh, I have to accept that. But, you know, I don't know how accurate this film is. I mean, it is based off the memoirs, or not memoirs, or based off a book about these guys, so it's subjective, obviously. Though, what I liked about this film in terms of just the actors themselves were fine, but they could have been so much more. I felt like everyone fit their role well, but there was so much space and emptiness that could have been filled with more interactions and just more lines. Because like I said, the narrative was disjointed, so there's a lot of jumping around, and it's just like every time someone speaks, I'm like, I like this guy, I enjoy their interactions, their chemistry is fine, but it could have been so much better. But then it goes back to the whole accuracy thing. Like, is this movie trying to forego accuracy? And I mean, you don't know until you read the books, right? But I think everyone fit their roles well. I enjoyed everyone's time on screen, though I enjoyed everyone else more than George Clooney, because George Clooney just felt, it was just George Clooney in that time. You didn't feel like he was playing an actual Frank Stokes. It was more like George Clooney was playing a George Clooney back in World War II. Everyone else sort of felt like they were actually from that time period, but George Clooney not so much. Kate Cate Blanchett was pretty cool. I enjoyed her acting and performance there. Matt Damon, maybe not so much, but everyone else enjoyed. I mean, John Goodman being paired up with Jean Desjardins, those scenes were awesome. Bill Murray, and I think it was Bob LeBan or one of those other guys. They were fine. Like, I enjoyed that. And so at the end of the day, pretty much, I'm glad this movie exists for people who are interested in World War II. And I think that more people should know that there were these guys and men and women who were... Like, there's this army unit that existed that protected art. And it was just like, yeah, we always remember all the fighting and stuff, but there was these guys that were protecting all these art pieces that represented culture, history, and all that awesome stuff, as well as... Like, it's awesome that, you know, people fight in wars and we won World War II, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it's just nice to just be not even reminded, but told that these people existed. And I'm just glad that this movie existed. I mean, props for George Clooney for directing and making this film existing. But as a movie reviewer, it's just, as a movie, no, not even reviewer, just as an audience, this movie could have been a lot better. But, you know, historical accuracy... Like, do you sacrifice it to be a more entertaining film, or do you make it accurate? So there's this balance, and I think this balance sort of is against this movie, because, I mean, you have humor. Like, humor exists, but it's really spread out, I would say. It's not a comedy for sure. It's a war film. But with the casting, you might have expect more comedy. But it is a war film. And I think it doesn't play to that in terms of trailers. Like, you would assume there would be more jokes or whatever. But essentially, this is a war film depicting the acts of this Allied group. And I think it did that well in that term. But as a movie itself, I don't know. Like, I think this is more of a historical movie, and is more like a glimpse of the past sort of thing, and it's hard to review something like this when it's, you know, you would want it to be accurate and true to the point of these men, but at the same time, it's not an entertaining film in terms of action, in terms of comedy, in terms of an epic acting. Like, none of that is there per se, but these men were there, and now that this world knows Monument Men existed, I think in the very long run, in terms of this war film genre, I think it's a good contribution to World War II theater, because everyone thinks World War II has to be focused on the warring and everything like that. I mean, now that this Monuments Men existed, I sort of wish that a movie comes out, or maybe I never watched a movie, but a movie about not the war itself, but rather how people reacted to the war. So maybe people back at home during World War II, so that's always that stuff that makes me think in terms of what happened when it came out with this movie. I'm like, yeah, like, it's okay to have a movie not about battling, but about people during this time era, because, I mean, there's so much stuff that we can talk about, and you would, again, going back to the point where it's like, historical accuracy or entertainment. So now I'm just rambling, not really reviewing the film. But yeah, Monument Men is a good contribution to this war film genre. But as a movie itself, don't expect entertainment in terms of jokes and comedy due to the cast expectation, but rather it's just a slice of life as like, these people existed, this is what they did. And like I said, casting old people, I don't know how old these people in real life were, but if these were real life counterparts, I greatly appreciated that they even existed. And yeah, thank you for, I would say that's how I felt when I came out of the movie. Like, it's based off a true story. I thank these men for trying to do this thing where they saved art and culturally important items, because, I mean, Hitler was destroying everything, and the fact that we have some of these stuff is due to these guys. So it's, yeah, so thank you. And yeah, as a movie, that's another story. But Monument Men, I think people should watch it if you're interested in the World War II genre. Watch it and just add it to your vast brain knowledge of what happened during World War II. That's how I would take it, to enjoy it a lot more than just, I want to be entertained by a war film. By a war film directed by George Clooney. That's pretty much it. And I'm done for this movie review for Monuments Men, and that is all.